Hey, this is Stone Jordan coming to you from my in-laws farm. What I want to talk to you about today is something very important. And what it is, it really involves two of the four pillars of time management. And those two pillars are being purposeful, living with purpose, having a strong why as to what you're doing. And then the second is being efficient, making the most of the available willpower that you have. And this really involves both of those things. And if you really follow this and you apply the things that we are talking about and you do the exercise, I can promise you that you will have a week that is both more purposeful and is more efficient, which is overall more productive. So, he and I got the opportunity to go on this whitewater rafting trip here a while back. And I've never been whitewater rafting. I've been canoeing and things like that. But we go on this trip. We think the rapids are supposed to be class 3 and some class 4. This area where we go has had a record rainfall, and they're class 4 and mostly class 5. We learn this when we get there, and I'm starting to get a little bit nervous, okay? So the instructor takes us through his whole spiel. We get out to the water, and we're getting ready to put in, and it starts to pour rain. You can't hear a thing because you've got the waves, the rapids going by, you've got the rain coming down. And the instructor, right before we go in the water and I put my feet in and feel the power of the current, is yelling to me some final, I'm sure, super important instructions that I can't hear at all. But we're in. And I am thinking, what are we doing? What have we gotten ourselves into? We get in that water. Let me tell you, those rapids don't care that you're there. There was no significance to us being there at all. It was going to toss us wherever it wanted to toss us. And I realized that really all our guide could do, who was on the back of the raft, was really use the canoe paddle to try to kind of steer us into the current, right? Because you can't fight the current or you're going to lose all your energy. Being in the current really helped you to get from point A to point B very quickly. And let me tell you, it was a rush to do this and try to stay in that current. Because when you're in that current, you move fast, you're more efficient, and you get from point A to point B very quickly when you're in the current. There was a book written in the 90s called Flow by the guy by the name of Mikhail, and I cannot even pronounce a very long last name, but it was called Flow. And the idea in this book is that when you are in the flow state, you are extremely effective and extremely productive. And it kind of goes like this. By the way, download the blueprint at stonejordan.info because it's going to go through all this. I throw a lot of content at you at a very fast pace. Download that and it'll explain this better to you. It'll illustrate it. But he's got a graph. And so on the one side of this graph is challenge. On the bottom side is skill. And what he is saying is that when you're highly challenged and you're highly skilled, the more you are in both of those areas, you get into more of a flow state. And that's where everything just comes naturally. You're almost outside of your own body. I don't know if you've ever experienced that. When minutes seem like hours, you don't even really notice yourself. Well, according to him, the more you get up into this area, the more you are in the flow state. And he kind of explains it by talking about the nervous system and how our bodies can handle about 110 bits of information per second. Our nervous systems can. And if you're having a conversation with someone and listening to them, that takes about 60 bits of information per second to be able to listen. That's why if you're listening to two people at the same time and they're trying to talk to you, that you really can't. It's very difficult because it's over that threshold. Plus, we always have some reserve bits of information for our consciousness, to feel that we're breathing, to be able to feel our bodies, to know that we're there. So how he explains the flow state is that because when you're in the flow state, you become 4, 5, 10 times more productive than you normally are. It's taking every bit of information. And that reserve that's normally left over for your consciousness, it's just not there. There's not anything left for that. So you get this ecstatic feeling. And ecstatic actually comes from the Greek, and it's a word that really means to be outside of yourself. So why am I telling you this? Well, to be in flow is really to be in the current. If you look at spiritual gifts in the New Testament, they're talked about quite a bit. And in many areas, when they're talked about, it doesn't even say that we have them. It just presupposes that we have these spiritual unique gifts that God has given us as Christians, and we're supposed to be utilizing these gifts. So when I look at this graph of both challenge and of skill, as a Christian, I look at it as challenge and spiritual gifts, okay? And when you are working within an area where you're using your spiritual gifts, the gifts that God has given you, and you're being challenged, you're challenging yourself to work within that area, like maybe you think, okay, is this really doable? You know it is, but it's really challenging you. When you're in that place, you're extremely productive. And it's kind of like being in that raft and knowing that all I need to do is get in the current, and I'm going to get from point A to point B faster, and I'm going to be more efficient. You know, I call that the spiritual current. Whenever we're using our spiritual gifts, when we're in alignment with what we're supposed to be doing, and we're being challenged to work within that area. Those are really the two keys, to be using your gifts and to be challenged. So I said all that to say this. If you want to be more efficient and you want to feel more purposeful, and you want to ramp up to maybe a level you've never been to before in terms of productivity and purpose, this week, first I want you to take a personality test. And I put this in the blueprint if you click the link. And it'll take you through, and it will just kind of open your eyes maybe a little bit more and enlighten you maybe a little bit more as to what type of personality you have. And then I would like you to consider saying a prayer and just asking for God's guidance as you write down your top 5 spiritual gifts. Just what you believe them to be, starting with number 1. What things come easiest to you? Have you ever felt like you were in this flow before doing something? And then write those 5 down. Then for the rest of this week, starting with Monday, starting today, you will take the first gift and you will be contributory in some way, utilizing that gift in a way that you're really challenged. Tuesday, you take the second one. Wednesday, you take the third one, and so on and so forth through the week. And then here's what you do that's really imperative. At the end of this week, don't forget to do this. Print off the blueprint so you're reminded. At the end of this week, look and measure these 5 days and say, where was I the most purposeful and where was I the most efficient? Where did I get the most done in these acts of service and contribution? If you do that, it'll enlighten you, hopefully, to an even more productive part of yourself. And that's something you can utilize and put in your tool belt for the rest of your life. I hope you have found this helpful. Please leave a comment and let me know what you think. If you agree, if you disagree, whatever, just let me know and contribute to the comments for the other people that are going to be reading them and let them know your thoughts. Thank you so much and have a productive and purposeful week this week. Take care.